Kemi Badenoch, you've been pretty forthright about the killings in Southport. What do you think went wrong?
First of all, I think I'd start by saying just how horrific I found the whole incident, and especially the stories that have come out following the sentencing. I've got two girls who are similar ages to those murdered children, and my heart goes out to the victims and their families, and so many more who were attacked who thankfully survived. And I just think that when these incidents occur, we need to make sure we have a thorough understanding of what's gone wrong to stop it happening again, or certainly reduce the probability of it happening again.
But do you have an opinion about why Axel Rudakabana was missed?
No, I do not know why he was missed. I think it is extremely surprising that so many state bodies were involved. At one point, schools could see what was going wrong, social work, police, etc. Why is it that despite all of these schemes and all of these programs that we put in place, previous governments, successive previous governments of all parties, certain people still slip through the cracks? And I think that an inquiry, which the Prime Minister has announced, and I do welcome that, should look at that. But I also think we need to look at much more than exactly what the state actors are doing. How we process information, what people believe they are or are not allowed to say, what they should be saying, because I think all of that has an influence. If there are people in a community who see someone like that and don't act or don't say anything because they think they're not supposed to, I think we'll end up seeing many more people slip through the cracks. We need society as well as the state bodies to get involved.
Does that suggest that you agree with the letter that's gone, I think, from two cabinet ministers today, essentially suggesting that social media platforms should be playing a bigger role here, perhaps in censoring or policing material that people can see?
I think you're referring to the letter, I believe, Yvette Cooper wrote. So these are things that we've been saying for a long time. Sometimes I believe that they can be a distraction, that social media should do more. Of course it should do. We've put in legislation for that we should ban the sale of knives. We've put in multiple laws banning all sorts of different knives. But those things will only ever go so far. We need to look at the root of where these behaviours come from, whether it is extremist ideology of whatever flavour, whether it's religious or related to hate of a particular group or sex. We need to start looking more at how we bring more people into society, integrate them across a whole range of issues.
All right, on Rudakabana himself, should there have been a longer sentence available to the judge?
I do believe that there should have been. I think that the fact that if he had done this 10 days later, he would have been eligible for a whole life sentence is something that we should look at. In those areas, I think that we could see some judicial discretion. But he has a very long sentence, 52 years. What I want to make sure is that victims don't have to see their perpetrators after such serious and heinous crimes. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that people should be put in prison for life. And it's unfortunate that he escaped that just by being a little bit younger, just by a few days.
Some people, including, I think, one of two of your own colleagues, think that the best way to make sure that victims never encounter the perpetrator again is to bring back the death penalty. Do you have any sympathy for that point of view?
I understand why a lot of people think that. And we've had death penalty conversations in this country and debates about it for many decades. There's a reason why we don't have it anymore. I personally don't think that that would solve things. I do think that there are many arguments people have made that are good about the cost of keeping people in prison for long periods of time and so on. But I don't think that that's the way we should go.
All right, let's turn to the economy. I know there's absolutely no point asking you about policies for government, but
you can ask.
I can ask. I know I'm going to be wasting my time. You don't have to have policies for government, but you do have to have policies for opposition, because that's your job. You're opposed to the rise in national insurance, inheritance tax changes, we know that. Do you want the Chancellor to change her mind on non-doms?
I think that the Chancellor needs to look at where growth comes from. I fundamentally believe that this Labour government does not understand where money comes from, where growth comes from. Government doesn't create growth, it's business. And if we have people who set up businesses leaving our country, that's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible for all of those people who want jobs, who want wage increases, for us seeing an increase in productivity and prosperity, just a better quality of life. I think that we made mistakes as well in government. I did not like our non-dom policy, but Labour has made it worse. And the little tweaks which they've adjusted aren't going to save anything.
When you say you didn't like your non-dom policy, what didn't you like about it?
I didn't like the fact that we were penalising people who had chosen to earn an income here and who were paying taxes here. What the policies mean is that you tax them on earnings outside the country. But if you do that in a competitive environment, when other countries aren't doing that, you will lose a lot of people who are investors, who bring wealth, who bring money, who bring jobs to the country.
So you'll approve of her essentially softening the position on non-doms, making it a little bit easier for them to bring their money here and so on?
I don't think we should treat business people as if they are bad people just because they're wealthy. We need to look at what kind of economy we want to structure in the UK, and we need to look at the elements that are required in order to make that economy grow. That is where the money for public services comes from.
Well, look, everybody agrees growth is a big thing, and the Chancellor is saying that she wants to kickstart growth by removing planning obstacles. How are all the Conservatives and constituencies, for example, like your own, which are largely rural, going to feel about removing the opportunities to object to new housing developments?
So I'll start by saying that the Conservative Party is under new leadership, and what I believe is that this country needs to be able to build because we have to leave something for the next generation. We can't just keep living off what previous generations have done. Now, that needs to be done properly, right homes in the right places. So if Labour is doing good things on planning, we will support them because we need to get building again. We need to remember how to deliver infrastructure, not have it take 20, 30 years and getting cancelled all the time. And I think that that's what the people out there want to see. They want to see how we're developing our country.
Oh, that's interesting. So when Conservative MPs start screeching about the removal of the environmental quangos, right to object, the 3 chances that local people have to object, reducing that to 1, you're going to say to them, get back in your box. We need to encourage growth. Let's support the Chancellor.
What I'm saying is that the Conservative Party is under new leadership. We haven't seen the details of what Labour is doing.
Yeah, but we know the direction of travel.
But if they are doing the right thing, we will support them. When I see the individual details, we'll be able to say more. Of course, we want local people to have a say. They should have a say. Many of them want to see their communities do better. Many of them want to see better infrastructure. I say this as a rural MP. The infrastructure around the Essex-Cambridgeshire area could do with an upgrade. That requires money which many of those non-doms you were just talking about could be bringing, but the policies have to be joined up.
OK.
They have to be joined up, and that's what we're not seeing from Labour.
Well, let's deal with a big test, which, by some measures, the Chancellor failed when asked her about this. Would you support the 3rd runway at Heathrow? Chancellor wouldn't tell me whether she would or not, will you?
So I've had to vote on this before, and I voted in support of the 3rd runway. And I am somebody who tells the truth and is consistent. I know that it is very difficult for a lot of people when there's an airport in your area. I know because I am the MP for an airport as well. Stansted Airport is in my constituency. And I have never opposed growth or development. What I want to do is make sure it's done in the right way. OK, but in principle, the Conservative Party, under new leadership, will back the 3rd runway. Now, this is one of the things which I've made very clear, that if you're a constituency MP and you have perhaps a personal reason why you need to represent your constituents, I think that that's, that's legitimate. But we are talking about the future. Okay. I think that we need to make sure that we deliver infrastructure. And if Heathrow Airport thinks that a 3rd runway is deliverable within the criteria that's set, then I think that we should, be honest and do the right thing. I voted for it before, so why would I change my mind? And that was it. That was a Conservative whip. That is admirably clear, and I think it adds up to yes. Yes? We did this before. I don't understand why politicians go back and forth on things. With me, you will always get a clear answer. OK, so I'm taking the clear answer as you will back a 3rd runway. I certainly will, yes. OK, Rachel Reeves' growth plans depend on
immigration running at something north of 300,000 a year over the next 5 years. Would you agree it's hard to see how we fill the jobs needed to grow the economy without immigration?
I disagree. I think that immigration is already too high. And when I was in government, I was constantly told by, OBR reports and the IFS, etc., that we needed immigration for growth. We had more immigration than ever before, and the growth was not commensurate with that. We need to change the way things work. It's too high, and we need an economy where all of those people who are out of work in this country get back to work. That's where we need to start from.
So how are you going to cut it down at the same time as staffing the hospitals and social care and doing the building of homes?
There are many things that you can do. First of all, start with the people in this country who are out of work.
Yeah, you've got to train. It takes years to train people.
That's true, but it's not fair that we take doctors from poor countries who have trained them and take them away from places that they're needed. That's not fair. I lived in a country where all of the doctors were leaving to go to wealthier countries in the West. What we are doing is bad for our country and it is bad for the world. Let's fix what is going on here.
All right. On immigration, you've made a really interesting point, which is that numbers matter, but integration matters more.
Yes, culture matters more, yes.
Yeah. When you talk about this, who are you talking about, and why would integration be more difficult for some rather than others?
Trevor, you've asked me this question before, I remember.
And I didn't get an answer then, so I'm asking you again.
Actually, you got a very, very clear answer. And one of the things that I don't think we have been doing in this country properly is having a proper immigration strategy. And many people assume that it's just something that government does. It has to go well beyond government. All of society has to do it. And that's what used to happen when we had immigration in much smaller, much more manageable numbers. And the numbers that we have seen over the last few decades mean that we are getting people having separate and insular communities. The most extreme example of this is what we saw with the rape gangs, where people who've been coming to this country from the 60s, from a particular region and sub-community in Pakistan, get here, stay insular, not interested in integration, and then you start seeing very, very toxic, I would say evil habits propagating, and no one doing anything about it because they're separate. We have to make sure that we have a dominant culture in our country and the people who move here want to help make the UK a better place. Our country is not a hotel, it's not a dormitory, this is our home.
But you have made a separate point, or perhaps a connected point, about who those people are and basically who you would prefer to come.
Oh, what did I say specifically? What do you mean?
You said that you worried about peasants who form sub-communities. Now, you can explain to me what you mean, but one way of reading this would be that you would prefer to have more middle-class Nigerians and fewer people from rural backgrounds in Bangladesh.
Let me be very, very clear. Immigration is too high, across the board, legal or illegal. But the point I was making there was about a specific report on that community of people who are predominant in the rape gangs. They did come from a particular place where they were mostly peasant farmers. They were insular, even from the rest of Pakistan. They're not like the people in Lahore. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to fix. I hear a lot of people talk about Asian grooming gangs, about Pakistani grooming gangs. A lot of people are being blamed. A lot of innocent people who happen to share characteristics are being blamed. So let's be specific. That was a literal word that has evidence behind it about where these people have come from, what they have been doing. And we should not be afraid to talk about that.
So we're going to apply a class lens to our immigration.
And this is, Trevor, forgive me, this is one of the problems, that when there is an issue where we have victims, girls are being raped and attacked, the conversation is more about the language that we're using. Well, what should we call the people? We can't be shy about things like that. And that's what I'm most interested in, the victims.
I'm interrupting you because you routinely complain that you're misquoted and misunderstood by people like me. Now, I just want to be clear.
Not often, not often.
OK.
I think you're quite
often enough. I want to give you the opportunity to be clear. You are not saying, I think, you're saying that different kinds of people bring different things. One path that might lead you to is to say that we should block immigration from certain parts of certain countries.
when you have low-skilled immigration from people who are not interested in integrating, you will have a problem. That is something that needs to be looked at. We should not treat somebody who has no education, no English, no skills, the same as a wealthy doctor who has come from a country close by like France. And at the moment, that's what's happening. And that's what's been happening for many, many decades. We can't do that. It's not sustainable. We need to be able to make sure that the people who are coming to our country are people who contribute. And of course, we will have exceptions where we have refugees, genuine asylum seekers, not just people who are claiming asylum when they're actually economic migrants. But I'm not afraid to talk about that. And it is because a lot of people have been afraid that problems have festered and got worse. And we need politicians who will tell the truth. Conservative parties under new leadership, that's what I'm here to do.
So much more to talk about. I hope you'll come back. Thank you, Kemi Badenoch, for your time this morning.